Hello everyone. Now we'll see this session will try to understand the structure of the C program. Before that we'll just try to recall the concepts which we discussed in the last session. It's about the types of language, low level, high level language. Low level is basically it's a machine and assembly language. Assembly language, you need to convert assembly level language into the machine level. We need assembler. And also in the high level language, we have seen some of the high level languages like Proton, COBOL, Pascal. Here different translators are required. Those translators are compiler and interpreter. Right? Compiler will compile whole program at a time and then it will convert that into an object program if there is no error. And similarly, your interpreter will interprets line by line or statement by statement and then it will convert into an object program if there is no error. And also we have seen some IDEs, how to develop or to develop a C program or any other instructions, we need some IDEs. So those are the things which we have seen in the last session. Today now we will try to understand the structure. Whenever you want to write a C program, first we need to understand how we need to define. First we need to understand the structure of that program, then probably by understanding that structure we can easily write our own instructions by using this syntax. First always we go with the comment line. What specific problem you are solving, or you are writing some set of instruction for what purpose. It's a kind of documentation purpose. Who has written, when you have written, so such kind of basic information you can provide. Basically your compiler will not consider these statements or the lines, commented lines for execution. Execution is nothing but, you remember one thing, it will convert that high level into the machine level, because machine has to understand what I need to execute or what I need to reply back for your query. So once your machine understands, then it's easy for to solve your specific problem. So always comments you need to mention. What exactly the comments we'll discuss in detail I think in the coming slides. And next we need to define the directives. There is a preprocessor, name itself preprocessor. Before processing you need to declare the directives. Preprocessor directives, all those preprocessor directives we need to include in this section. And if there is any global variables, global, you need to define outside the function, so that you can access all the variables throughout the program or across the functions. When you define within the function, it will be limited only for that. So global, it's out of scope and even the visibility is more when you compare to the local. So that is, if you have any such global variables or the global variables which are required for multiple functions, then you can declare all those variables globally. So that we declared out of this main function. So now we need to define a main function. Always your execution starts from your main function, because whatever you want to process or you want to solve, everything will be written in the main function. So you need to define the local variable. See here, it's a global out of the main, and inside the main there will be a local variable. So now local variables are specific or inside that function. You cannot take or this scope of this local variables is not outside the function. Only within that function you can make use of those local variables. And if you have any input output statements, you can use all, you can define all the statements in the same within the function. And also if you have your own functions, user defined, it's my own, whatever I want I can define one function and I can write all those statements within that function. That we call it as a user defined. User is created its own function, that is a user defined function. So that is comes under the last. Now we'll see comment. It indicates the purpose. As already I told you, why, what exactly you are solving, or who has it. All the the purpose you need to write in the comments. Always, how do you define a comment? So by using this slash and star, and then you can define whatever you want within that. Yes, I am going to write a program and adding two numbers, or the author is and date when you have created this program. Anything with respect to the documentation point of view or to define any specific purpose, everything you can mention under the comment line. So, this how do you define a comment? By using this slash star, and then the same structure I want to close that comment. That means your compiler should not consider for execution, means you need to define your commented line between this syntax or between this notation slash star, and you write whatever you want and then the star and then the slash. So, it is like whatever you define, that will be commented line. So, your comment line is basically used to increasing the readability of the program. So, anybody, even though I am not the person who have written this code, I just come and see when you have the proper comments, it is very easy to understand because it is very readable. You have defined what exactly the program is and the purpose of the program, what are the different functions you have used, what are the global variables and what value you have assigned for the global, everything you have defined, right. So, it is very user or readable format. So, anybody can easily understand the code without any help. It is very useful in explaining the program, and also it is generally used for the documentation purpose. This will be specifically helpful to define or use it for the documentation, and always you need to enclose within the decimeters. That means whatever the notation you have used, you need to use for defining the comment, we need to include within that. Commented lines always can be a single line comment or it may be a multi-line, but should not be nested. Single line comment, you cannot add one more comment within that, or multi-line within a that you cannot add one more. It should not be nested within a comment, that is not allowed. So, you can use either a single line comment, there is only one line, single line, that is nothing but this. Multi-line, yes, you can write multiple lines, but this end notation should be after like 4 lines, 5 lines or whatever the number of lines you have defined as a commented line. So, it can be anywhere in the program, there is no restriction. If I say in the structure it is a first sentence, means that means comments are always only in the first line. No, nothing like that. You can define anywhere in the program. Suppose initially very first statement is your program name, the purpose of this program, and who is the author or the programmer has written this and when. So, such kind of the global or the high level details maybe you can declare at the beginning of the program, or maybe as in the structure of the C program I have defined here user defined function. In this user defined function, if you want to define what exactly the user defined function is, maybe there you can give one more comment like this is a user defined function to add 2 numbers or to find out something, whatever the specific purpose of that user function, even you can define there. So, that means you can give your comments anywhere in the program. You cannot restrict yourself only at the first few lines, anywhere in the program except inside the string constants and the character constants. Whenever you define some constants, so within that or inside that you cannot define your comments. That is the only constraints while defining the constants. So, single line comments, as already I told, you can use slash and star, that is started with slash and then star and then end with the same line. You can end with the same star and then slash, that is one way. Another way is maybe you can use 2 slashes, no need to use the star, you can use double slash, that also is a comment, you can single line comment. So, with the 2 forward slashes, with the help of the 2 forward slashes, you can use your single line comment. Any text between the forward slash and the end of the line is ignored by the compiler. Suppose if I write my comment like this, this is my comment. What does that mean? Now we have 2 statements, but this particular statement is prefixed with these forward slashes. So, your compiler will consider only this statement as a commented statement. This my comment is not prefixed with any forward slash, so it won't be considered as a commented line. So, single line. So, even no need to specify anything at the end of the statement. These 2 forward slashes are enough to define a single line comment. When you want to define this, I want to convert also a comment, then you can define multi line comment. So how do you do that? So instead of this, you can write slash star, this is my comment, then you close it. So now this will be a multi-line comment. So example, you can see here, this is a comment, I am just printing hello world. So only this statement will be ignored by your compiler, rest will be printed as an output. Multi-line comments, as we have seen in the previous slide, multi-line comments start with this and end with the same thing. Okay, even if you have 2 lines or 20 lines, everything should between these two notations. So that will be considered as a comments, and your compiler will ignore while compiling those statements. That we call it as a multi-line comment. So any text between slash star and star slash will be ignored by your compiler. Example, you see the code below will print the words hello world to the screen. That's the first statement. Second statement is continuing but in the next line, and it's amazing. Close with star and slash. I am printing hello world. So it will print the same thing, but it will not consider, these two statements will not consider for the execution. This concept we call it as a multi-line comment. Preprocessor directive, as already I told you, some information we need to include into your program. So how do you include that, or how do you define this preprocessor? So there is a hash include that will tell, or that will instruct your compiler. You include some information about the input and output library. So that means hash include is the library that will give the instruction to your, that hash include will give you the instruct to the compiler to include the information. What information? Whatever the information you want to use or in your code. So with respect to your program, I need input output statements. So obviously you need to include the respective libraries into your code. How do you include, or how do you instruct to the compiler? So your hash include will help you to include the information about input and output library. So, and if I want to define any constants, to define a constant, so for that instead of include we use hash define. So I can use hash define. Pi value is what? 3.14. When now whenever you use pi, automatically that is a 3.14. So whenever you use a symbolic constant such as hash define, there is another directive. And stdio.h, standard input output header file. std, standard I input o output dot h header file, that we need to include by using this hash include statement to include our program, so that you can easily define all your input output statement, or you can deal with the statements with respect to the input output. In C programming, printf is used for output and scanf is used for input. This is basically printf function is used to display, scanf function is used to read the value. So whenever you want to use these input output statements, you need to include first, primarily you need to include your IO libraries into your code. That is the job of preprocessor directive. As already I told you, global declaration. If any variable that you want to access globally, then you can define global, declare as a globally, so that you can access easily in all the functions throughout the program, and you can declare outside the function. That we have seen in the structure. And main function, it is the user defined function, and every function has only one main. Every function has only one function, from where that's where your program will start execution, and always it encloses with the pair of curly braces. See here, main. This will, you can define anywhere in the program, but always good to use at the beginning or first position of your program, so that we will come to know it's the beginning of the execution. That's where, even though you define anywhere, but it's always good practice to use at the beginning of the statement. So this is how you can define syntax main. Maybe if you want, I missed, like, I have not included your commented and header file, because what is required here, I just used only that main, and you can define whatever the statement you want within this program. Now the main function will basically, it will return the value when it is declared the data type as int. If you declare, if you want to return anything, then you declare the data type as a int. What is data type and all, that is that we will discuss in detail. It's a type of the data, type of the value. What type of value you want to return, you just pass that as a you declare with that particular data type. We'll see that. See, main, I am just using return. So this main function does not return any value. Suppose if it won't return anything, if I want to return something, you can define integer. If you want to return integer value, you can define int. If you don't return anything, then we call it as void. That means empty, null, as void main. So like this. Here main, it's a void main. So I am just using printf C language. Your output will be C language. So this is how we can define the C program. So always your C program execution starts with the opening braces and end with the closing. It's the beginning of the function and end of the main function. So that is where your scope starts and ends. So in two braces, the declaration part as well as the executable part is mentioned. At the end of each line, every statement whatever you return within that, that should be terminated by, or that end of each line should have the semicolon. See here, except main. See here, printf, return, every statement within this braces. I have written two statements, every statement is ended with semicolon. So at the end of each line, the semicolon is given, which indicates statement termination. That is the end of the statement. Statement termination means that semicolon will give the instructions to the compiler, okay, it's an end of this particular statement, you go to the next line. So there will be no continuity between the line. There is no continuation of the line. That is a termination of that particular statement. This is an example, hash include in main of void, and I am just printing welcome to the C programming language. I am not returning anything, return 0. I am just printing output. Once you compile, there will be no error. Here compiler, the whole program will be loaded, or it will take all the statements at a time. It will check any error. If there is no error, then it will translate it to the object program at a time, and then we will get this output. This is what the simple example for your C programming. So we'll just before concluding, we'll summarize this. We have seen the structure of the C programming. In the structure of the C programming, we have seen first, always you need to use the comment section to define any documentation purpose, and then if you need any directives, pre-processed directives, you can include in that preprocessor directives. That we have seen what are the very common preprocessor directives. There is a standard input output library. For that we need to take the help of hash include stdio.h standard input output header file. And if you want to define any particular constant, symbolic constant, we use hash define any such constants. And then main function we have seen, main function, that's where your exactly actual program execution will starts from main, and any input output statement or declaration of the variables, everything you keep it within the main function, or outside any variables which you can access across the function, then you can define such variables as a global declaration outside the main function. And if after the main, if you want to include your own function, it's a user defined function, that you can keep it in the user defined section. And we have seen some of the example how to write and how to what is the, and we have seen in the comment section, single line comment, multi-line comment. Single line is 2 forward slashes, multi-line is a forward slash and star, and then the end of the comment line also completed by just star and then slash, then it's a complete multi-line comment. So your compiler will not consider for the those lines for the execution. This is what we have seen in this session. Thank you.